You're watching Twitter for Schools, Episode 5, Be a Learner. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan O'Donnell. I'm a technology TOSA in Rockland Unified School District. You can follow me on Twitter at CreativeEdTech. And the first 4 parts of this YouTube series has all been designed about the nuts and bolts of learning about Twitter. We talked before about how Twitter is really kind of a radically different way in which to communicate, differing from email and other forms of communication. And what we've done is really talked about how what you can do as an educator is to starting conversations or starting how to be able to share out experiences at your classroom, at your school or your district or wherever. But this was all about you as the person who is replying or the person who is composing. And this is going to be a different kind of an episode because what Twitter has really done, what social media has really done is taken educators have sort of, in many ways, hijacked it and really sort of turned it into something that's been really beneficial for them in 2 ways. The first one is what we've basically talked about, which was the educators are now sharing what they're doing. They're opening up the doors to their classrooms and to their schools and letting people on the outside see. So we've talked about promotion and celebration. And so that has been an unbelievable tool to be able to show the amazing things that have happened and are going to happen at our schools. The second piece, which has been really powerful, is redefining the idea about what professional development or learning is for educators. For a long, long time, education has been driven in terms of how do we learn as simply as you may be lucky enough to go to a conference, you may purchase a book, or your school or district may offer you a workshop or an in-service at the start of school, or maybe one in the middle of the school, and that was about it. So what Twitter is really doing is, and it's not necessarily just Twitter, other social media tools have been doing this as well, because there are communities in Google+, there are communities in Facebook that allow for this. But the idea that how can you learn from others, to connect to a larger group of people who really resonate with you. And what we call that is a personal learning network, or a PLN for short. The power of the PLN has redefined and really inspired so many educators, everything from the classroom educator, site administrators, and beyond. And so that's what today's focus is really going to be about, how you can develop your own PLN. And the focus on all of this is you could look at 2 different ways in which to be able to develop these, to find those conversations. And that is finding people, and then also finding the conversations that are happening. I'm going to first off talk about the conversations that are happening and how you can go about finding them. So the first place I want you to be able to check out is this Google document that I have here. And I have a link that you can see right here where you can be able to go and access this. And this is just what I have put together primarily from the Cybrary Man. If you're familiar with him, his name is Jerry Blumgarden, and you can see his link on my document that has to a much more extensive list of the hashtags that educators are using. This one is a more condensed one that I have sort of weeded out and pulled out sort of the ones that I've connected with and I think are pretty relevant for the teachers and educators that I work with. So this is about a 1-page document is all that it is. And I've tried to break them up into different categories. So what you will do is go to this document or go to the Cybrary Man's one, and there's others out there as well too, but try to be able to look and see that all of these are the hashtags of different themes that educators are rallying behind. And the themes are, we have general education, specific subject areas like math, social studies, science. You can have grade levels, everything from preschool through middle school. We have leadership, educational technology, specialty areas, big ideas, regional chats, and even just some fun ones. And then what I want you to be able to do is, as you're looking at these ones, think about something that resonates with you, about who's the community that you want to connect with. And I'm going to show you a couple examples here. First off, I'm going to go and think about, if I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be able to want to see what the elementary school teachers in the country are really talking about. There's a couple different ones. I could look specifically or prefer a particular grade level, 1st through 6th or so, but I'm going to take that LM chat. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to go over to Twitter and I'm going to type in the search and type in LM chat. I can either do it by itself or I can type in the hashtag. And then what happens is I'm going to start to see a running list of chronologically put in place the results that come back from people who have basically added hashtag LM chat. And you'll see it'll be bolded in your searches. And then what you're going to do is this is we often refer to as professional development in your pajamas, PDs in your PD in your PJs, where you sit on your lazy boy, you sit on your couch, you spend some moment on your own, where you simply just kind of browse through. Now, this is browsing like if you're at the library or you're shopping, that you're not necessarily going to take every single one. You're simply going to scroll through and kind of look and see what people are talking about. We dissected some earlier tweets about what people basically do, because basically people on Twitter are saying, check this out. People could be saying, hey, like here, building the foundation of lifelong leaders. They wrote a sentence, a statement here, and then added a link and then put in some hashtags. And so that link basically, if I click on this, it's going to open it up into a separate tab. And that tab is going to be a reading for me. And it gives me a little dissection or a little sort of, a preview of what I can see. And this is 50 of the best books for second grade. And I may want to be able to, I'm going to check that out a little bit later, but I'm going to continue to browse for a little bit. And you can see some other people. Here's Teach Like a Pirate, Dave Burgess. He's talking about a new book that came out about Google Apps for Littles, and he's saying you could possibly check that out. And as I simply scroll, I start to see people are sharing book ideas or sharing websites. Here's another one, 10 books to spark a love of math in kids of all ages. And you can see this particular educator, she put quite a bit of hashtags in here. EdChat, education, reading, math chat. The reason she added all of these on here is that because she is trying to be able to cover and reach a lot of people who are interested in just education or reading or math or anybody involved in K-12. And so there's different folks who want to who look at different ones of these hashtags. And so that's what she's ultimately doing there. And as these come up, so let's take a look. And here's this one. If I click on that, it brings up this particular link, and I can go check out this link. Here's 10 books to spark a love for math. And it's basically, she took me to a link of a list of some books that I may or may not want to check out. And so now brings up another question. What do I do with this? Let's say this is something that was interesting to me. Now, I would assume like that those of you who are watching this video are like so many of us out there, that you are constantly being bombarded with too much content, too many emails to go through, too many links to check out. Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. So what do you do if you see something that I may not necessarily want to act upon it now? I want to save it to later. That's a separate question. I'm going to just briefly show you how I address it. But there's many different ways in which that you can sort of aggregate or curate all of the things that you find. At the most basic, let's say if I have some teachers who love math, I could take that particular link, copy that link. I can go over to my email and paste this and send it to some of my math teacher friends and say, hey, you guys may want to check this out. And I've sort of pushed it on. At the most basic, I can go back over here and say, hey, I want to spread this with not necessarily the teachers that I directly work with. I want people in my PLN, that group of people who I'm already following, and or people who follow me, and I can hit retweet on this. If I hit retweet, it gives me the option. I can be able to make a comment on here. Or if I wanted to, I can just hit as is, and it will ultimately get sent out to my particular followers. So that's a way to be able to share out. But if I want to be able to just keep it for later, look at it later, here's my technique. And there's lots of them out there. But my simple one is using a tool called Google Keep. Google Keep is part of the Google suite of education tools. Basically, it's sort of like a Post-its, little sticky notes kind of a thing that you could add labels to in color. And there are many extensions, there's many tools you can use to be able to help. So for example, I have added a Chrome extension up here on the top, and it says Save to Keep. Now I can see that it's grayed out because I have not kept this one. So my quick idea, if I find things, I simply click on that particular button, and now you can see it has been highlighted, it's been turned on, and it says, hey, I'm going to basically add this to a note. A little bit more robust than adding it as a bookmark. If you can remember back in the day when many of us would bookmark things, it seems like bookmarks have kind of gone away because of they've got too busy. So this is a way to be able to categorize them a little bit. So it says best second grade books for the classroom, and I can add to this, look at this later, and maybe share with my math department. And it's automatically saving. It does bring up a little thing called label over here, and these are some pre-done labels which I've already done. I've had one called Inspiration and Leadership, Personal, Social Studies, and Work. So this is a math one, so it wouldn't necessarily fall under social studies, but this is part of, let's say I'll put that under work, and now it has been tagged there. And in the future, if I want, when I go over to, I can bring up my Google Keep, and it simply is, if you type in, it's keep.google.com, and this is going to bring up all of my notes. And it's a bit busy, but you can see you can color code them and you can add labels. And here's the one that has automatically been added: the second grade books to check out, and my little note, and plus the label that has been added there. And if I wanted to, I can be able to put a color on that, and maybe say make all my math things a particular red color. So that's my strategy in terms of being able to find things and be able to save them for later. What you can do is be able to go out and search for others that are out there that apply to you. So let me show you another example over here of one called the NGSS chat. Just like before, I type in search and that. And if you notice, a fair amount of them end with this word chat. That's sort of what education has done to be able to kind of give them a theme. But the chat serves two purposes, which I want to demonstrate here. So NGSS that's Next Generation Science Standards, and so this is for people who are interested in following along with those kind of conversations. And as I scroll, like I could do before, look and find things. But now wait a second. And when I did the search, I want you to take note. It also brought up, hey, it brings up here that the most recent ones would be under latest. Top would be the most recent, but the ones that had the most traction, people who had retweeted them or people who were applied. But I also want you to take a look at people over here. This is another part about developing your PLN. The PLN is finding those hashtags, finding those conversations, but then you want to start to connect with some of those people who are active on those. And the first one that gets brought up, it says, hey, listen here, if you're looking for NGSS, it's Twitter saying you may want to follow the official account of the NGSS Twitter chat. Now, that is not necessarily you'll often see these, and they'll say that they're part of a chat, not necessarily part of the organization, because I'm going to talk about what that is in a moment here. But what you can do from here is start developing and say, hey, listen, I want to follow that particular person. Or let's say if after time I'm noticing more and more that I'm looking at this person named Trisha Shelton, and I like the stuff that she's adding, and I can see a little bit about her bio here. She's a high school science teacher. She's doing the NGSS implementation, and she's also co-moderator of this NGSS chat. So in some way, she is partly responsible for this. But I mentioned before, nobody can really owns a hashtag, and hashtags are just themes. But what almost all of these hashtags are designed around is to be themed to a subject of study, but then also to be part of an actual live conversation, which I'm going to talk about in our next episode, which are called live chats. So if I go back over and take a look at my NGSS chat search, and I click on latest, and I can start to see, like before, here's some groups that are saying, hey, check out this thing, click on a link, check on this thing, click on a link. As I start to scroll and browse, I can start to notice that some of the conversations look a little bit different. For example, these right here. So if you see this one from this person named Philip Bell, Philip Bell has started each of his tweets. Well, he does have NGSS chat in there. That's why it comes up. But look at the start of them. It says A3, A3, A3. And as I start to scroll, I can start to see some other people will start theirs also with the letter A with a number behind it. For example, this one here from Lindsay McAllister, A4. So what these are people who are involved in this live conversation, and they're responding to somebody who earlier mentioned a question. So they would write Q4, the letter Q, and say, hey, here's question number 4. And then they would put out a question, and then people would rally around a particular time. And all these chats usually they're often once a week, and they're usually themed around a particular subject, and people would answer and reply to particular questions. So if you see the A1, A2, A3, A4, it's usually based with those live chats. And I'm going to walk you through those in our next particular episode if you want to be able to check those out. And the last thing I want to be able to show you is that besides regular classroom teachers, that there's quite a bit for others as well too. So for many of you in the educational leadership role, there are plenty of hashtags to go with you as well too. So if I look up here on the top of my Twitter hashtag document, we have connected principals, school administrators, joyful leadership, hacking leadership, and another one just for Saturday morning conversations. For those of you who love to get up early and on a Saturday, primarily in East Coast, there's also a Sat chat for the West Coast as well too. And I should probably add that link on there as well too. And so by doing a search, let's say here, if I did a search for hashtag EdAdmin, I can start to see people who are sharing. Sometimes they're organizations, like here's Mindshift, and that is an organization like we talked about in the past. And sometimes they're just people. Here's somebody named David Franklin who is being able to share out, and you can see, my goodness, he definitely put out a wide swath of trying to be able to hit everybody here. And sometimes you can even kind of get the gist of looking at some of these hashtags. Like I think I can know what SUPT chat means, like superintendent chat or Illinois chat or Nevada chat. And you start to see a lot of these people kind of share out some wonderful nuggets. Like I saw this one from Larry Baker. Would love more Rockstar administrator examples of workflow apps and practices for becoming a digital school administrator. And he put a picture, because a picture, like I mentioned before, really helps to get traction. And he's showing here 6 ways in which that administrators can use digital tools, everything from forms to creating a handbook to Doodle and digital signatures, way to be able to help this workflow in terms of getting rid of paper. And he's asking for more ideas. So you click on the link, because he provided a link, be able to find out more about these ones, and he wants to hear from others as well too. So a wonderful way for you all to kind of be able to connect and to those particular hashtags. And the last piece, like I mentioned before, is those individuals. So now if I have Larry Baker here, somebody I really particularly like, I want to be able to click on him, and I can now follow. And if you can remember from before, not necessarily just follow, I can actually add him to one of my lists as well too. And if you're interested, you may not necessarily, some folks have decided I may not necessarily want to follow somebody. I may just want to be able to add somebody to a list. So I only will be able to see Larry Baker's stuff, let's say, if I went to add to a list and add him to administrators that I'm following that I want to be able to check out. And if you want to learn more about lists, you can go back to one of our previous episodes. So anyway, I hope you have some time to be able to dive in and really find these communities that really resonate with you, and find some nuggets of wisdom and start putting them away like a squirrel, kind of hiding it nut for the winter, about where you can be able to stash your nuggets of wisdom. And I hope that you really can be able to get the most out of Twitter for your own personal learning. Thank you.